Okay, here we go. Rebirth vlog number 9 already. And I'm keeping it up. It doesn't matter how I feel, I keep up with the vlog. And do that, as I said, also for myself. So, let's get right into it. It's already 20 years now that I am in the psychedelic culture. I am, quite astonished myself that it already has been such a long time. And of course, first I came into the psychedelic world as everybody else, as like a dancer, a participator, in a visitor, however you want to call it. And I even got in contact as a kid with the culture, not directly, but indirectly, through my big brother and my big sister, who were listening to the music, because there was one really important club in Munich that was called Natraj Temple, that was going through several different iterations. In starting, I think, the 90s and then all through the 2000s, it was a very important place, I guess, for the culture, even internationally at some point in time. And all the big acts performed there. And the original Natraj Temple was really, really cool. I was there even once as a kid, because they had something that's called like Day of the Open Door, so you can just like come in. Families and all could visit. And it was all, made like a psychedelic cave, you can say. Like everything full of batik artwork. And everything was made from wood. Also the dance floor was made from wood. So at that time I was, I think, maybe 14. My first album I had with age 12, actually. But at that time I was listening more to hip-hop, actually. I can actually turn that up a bit, I guess. Yeah. I was listening to hip-hop at the time more than I was listening to trance, but I was really interested, and my best friend also was quite interested in it. But of course we didn't understand the culture. How should you with 12 years old? But then when I started to go to parties, maybe at age 15, 16 around, it was psytrance parties. And first it was pure escapism, as I think it is for many young kids. Like it's a place to escape to. But then it helped me in unprecedented and unexpected ways through the psychedelic experience. When I was around 19 years old in 2006, when especially one moment with peyote, mescalin and LSD on the beach of Africa on a festival called Rhythms of Peace. But I was just like entering the culture as, everybody does. Like, you come there and you're fascinated and then you get deeper into it. And I got incredibly deep into playing poi. I was really almost, you can say, famous or known for that regionally, and then also starting, not only regionally, because I was traveling so fast. And in Munich we had a very strong psychedelic culture. Very, very strong. One of the strongest that I have ever seen. This is also the reason why there are so many artists coming from that place. Surely, there is a tremendous amount of artists that come all from that city or lived in that city during a certain period. And I was one of those artists, and many other artists are also from there. Sato Arepo, Chromatech, Kaya, and many, many others. Deviant Force Crew is from there, for example, and other labels as well. So it's like it was a hotspot for psychedelic culture. That also meant that we are traveling together quite early. First to festivals in Germany and around, but then actually quite quickly to festivals all around Europe. And it was going quite fast, really, I have to say. That we started to travel. And there was a time where we had very little monetary complaints anymore, especially the time when I was with a friend of mine. I'm not going to say his name because it doesn't really matter, but there was one friend of mine and we were like this weird couple of people, one, very, very complementary, very different. But we had somewhat incredible experiences, not together, but connected to each other. I don't know. It's weird. And we ended up, both of us ended up studying art in the end. But with him, I did this trip to Boom Festival in Utopia, and then, basically this thing what I mentioned before with peyote and LSD, that psychedelic experience that I always say, had tremendous impact on my life and on my journey as an artist as I took it. Up to this day, it is a place where I can return, actually, where I do return to that specific psychedelic experience that was very, very much focused on, it sounds cliche, but something like unconditional eternal love, universal kind of love experience. And I returned to that room, to that entity that I met there, still, even so many years after that. And it also had a tremendous effect on my life, because I didn't had finished school or something like that, and approximately 2 years later, actually not 1 year later, 2 years later, I was on a prestigious art university, and that was also connected to that experience, certainly, very much certainly, because it laser focused my my vision and my intention for what I do with my life. And there was this big realization of, okay, I knew it already for a long time, but that became crystal clear. I'm a creator, and this is my job in the universe, and I have to do this in order to fulfill, to take part in the best way possible in this cosmic play that we call life. And so I did, and it was the right thing. It was the right intuition that I had back then. And now it's already, such a long time after that, and a lot has passed. I visited all the world, 5 continents, almost 30 countries. I played on, very intimate events, and up to really, really, really big commercial events, like, for example, Universo Parallelo, or Maya, or Indian Spirit, and all those commercial events, Paradise Festival, and also Master of Puppets, of course. I played there. I helped Flo to build it up in the beginning, before we had our fallout. We were actually friends, longtime friends. Also a guy, by the way, that is from Munich, is interesting as well. So much has happened, and I traveled to the Himalayas. I traveled India for an incredible amount of times. I got to know and fell in love with Goa. I got to know Central America, Guatemala and Costa Rica and Mexico. And of course also my very, very profound experiences with California and San Francisco. That is also like a big part of my life journey. And Australia, even this is like, something that is what had a certain impact on me. So all those travels, Nepal, seeing Nepal for the first time, traveling in the Himalayas with the adventure bike, with the Himalayan, as I did last year, which was a real dream coming true. All those experiences led me to start to write a book. And that book doesn't have a fixed name yet. It has a couple of working titles. And already around like 60s, well, by now actually more, probably like 80,000 words or something like that are already written. So, yeah, I released, I think, like at least one chapter, and I got some really good response from the people that read it. The first chapter is like San Francisco, actually. There are many, many different versions, but there is one that is released on parandroid.net. I will also link it down in the description below, of course, for you guys. So you can check it out, and it describes just like a tiniest little portion of my experience in San Francisco, which was very multi-layered and interesting. And I see it as my duty now in this part of my life, where I already gathered so much life experience and saw all those places. I had the privilege to get to know all those different cultures. and experience them in a very raw, natural way, because I was sort of a tourist, but not a tourist, because if you're getting invited to those places for work, which it was in my case, then it is a whole different setup, and you're going to have a very different experience from a regular tourist, of course. So, yeah, this is one of the things that I will focus on as well in the next time, because I feel that deep, vision that I need to do that now, that this is important, that I need to put this out, that it has, a certain worth, that expands to the Psytrance community. Hopefully. I think so. And I always loved to write, and I come from a family, my grandfather was a renowned painter and art professor called Rainer Küchenmeister, and his brother was a filmmaker and writer called Klaus Küchenmeister. And the father of my grandfather was a resistance fighter and also pamphleteer and writer for the resistance that fought against Hitler in the Second World War, German people that fought against Hitler. A lot with information, with distributing information and so forth. So it lies, in my genes somewhat, at least from my mother's side. I have obviously, my father's side has a vastly different background than my mother's side. And I always loved to write. That's why I'm doing it. I don't have to, do something that I don't like. Although I very quickly realized that something like that is not easily done. That writing an own book, if you're working with a lot of editors, you already have a publisher, then it's a different process. But if you're fully on your own, it's quite the feat. It's goddamn hard, actually. Even if the concept is rather simple and you have an outline, because that would be one of the first things that you need to work on, is the general idea of the video. Is it appealing, first of all, to write this book? Will it do a service to humanity to write this book? And do you maybe even feel a cultural gap or a gap in literature that it hasn't been done like that? That would be a good thing, and I think it applies in my case. But then the first thing that you would work on is an outline, and even that can be quite hard. It's harder than you think, definitely, especially since it's not fiction what I'm writing. It's my own experiences in all of those different places where I saw, the vast differences of, for example, in between poor and rich, and really colliding and walking on knife's edge of those two worlds. For example, in Brazil and Mexico and Tijuana, etc., my experiences there as a young boy, literally my first transatlantic tour in my life, totally green. I feel a deep pull that I am ought to do this now. And the psychedelic experience that I had last weekend just enforces that. There was in the group which I was doing it with last weekend, there was was very, very interesting makeup. Was an IT guy, medicine student of medicine, and me, the artist, and another guy that was studying basically something like business management into this direction. And this was the setting, and of course the most beautiful nature, and the beginning of the spring. It was actually epic. We were not the only people having a psychedelic experience. We spontaneously, on the same lake where we were, which was literally paradise, there was just a group next to us, maybe 50 meters, and we had to ask them for cigarette papers. And I noticed, they're doing exactly the same. Because it makes so much sense, of course. Spring is coming. It was a beautiful day. So, of course, people like us, we go out in the nature and do our thing there, and it was profound, I can say. And, those experiences, they always tend to help me focusing on what is really important. Unfortunately, I got sick after that. Little bit, like I got a cold after the experience. Maybe also because I jumped into an ice cold lake. I don't know, but it was a bacterial infection. That's for sure. And I'm still having a slight cough, but I felt so much better today. That's why I'm going more active. And I already wrote, like the beginning of a new track, which goes into a direction that is appreciated by me. And getting a little bit active, doing this vlog thing that I started to do. And by the way, thank you for all the positive messages. Like it's so awesome to see that when people get in touch and, they understand that like being a long-term artist and being long-term creative is not an easy thing. And it's also a thing that I actually wanted to talk about with you guys. But I think I'm gonna leave it at that and keep that for the next one. And the next one will be what it really means to do art, health, energy levels, solitude, and mental and physical space to create. Those are just little bullet notes that I have written down because that's something that I am very interested in recently, also through the Huberman Lab. How can you be more efficient in whatever you do, but in my case it's creative work. So how can I push the knobs or turn the knobs into the right direction to have the perfect efficiency in the output as a human being, while perfectly staying healthy and balanced at the same time on body, soul, mentally, all those different levels. Because to do great art is actually one of the things. You need to keep energy levels at a sufficient high level, and it needs to be flowing, especially we're talking about long term. Okay, we're not talking about short term, talking about plus 10 years or something like that. It's about keeping a steady line of energy in your life so that you can have a meaningful creative output. Guys, thanks for watching. For those that are interested in what I have to say. And thanks for liking the video, of course, if you found it in any way interesting or helpful. And let me know what you think about what you just heard down in the comment section below. Maybe you are also a writer or something like that. Can share a couple of tips. I found a couple of cool channels that are pretty dry but offer good knowledge in learning how to structure, different things in writing, etc. Maybe you have a good suggestion and pop it down in the comment section below. And I see you guys in the next one. Was good to talk, and cheers.